Welcome to World Explained. Every single night as darkness falls across the globe, an invisible, deeply mysterious, and honestly kind of terrifying phenomenon takes hold. Think about this. More than 8 billion people willingly surrender their consciousness, and they enter this truly bizarre state. Your physical body, it becomes completely, entirely paralyzed. You literally cannot move. And while you're trapped like that, you drift helplessly, but deliberately, through incredibly vivid, hyper-realistic hallucinations for hours on end, all in the pitch black of your bedroom. And then, as the morning light breaks, you wake up, and your brain almost instantly wipes the hard drive. You forget practically everything that just happened. When you step back and look at it objectively, it sounds exactly like the plot of some mind-bending sci-fi psychological thriller, but it's not. This is human biology. This is the nightly paralysis.
Okay, let's really dive into this, because what's absolutely fascinating here is that this terrifying loss of control state, it's actually a biological superpower. I mean, history is just packed with moments where the sleeping mind completely outperformed the waking mind. Take 1862, for example. There was this highly frustrated chemist, Auguste Kekule, who was totally stuck trying to figure out the molecular structure of benzene. He just couldn't crack it. He eventually fell asleep, and in his dream, he saw these snakes curling into circles, literally biting their own tails, and boom, the answer appeared. That one dream completely revolutionized modern chemistry. Or how about music legend Paul McCartney? He literally woke up one morning, and the melody for the legendary song Yesterday was just fully formed in his head. No effort, just there. The brain can solve unbelievably complex problems while you are completely unconscious. But to pull that off, it has to completely abandon its usual logic. It has to scramble your memories and create this wildly distorted, irrational world. So, how exactly does the brain do this? We're going to peel back the layers of this nightly process, and honestly, it plays out with the suspense and precision of a true crime documentary.
Section 1. The Nightly Paralysis.
So to pull off this massive neurological shift, your brain initiates 4 extreme biological lockdowns. First up, complete paralysis. Your brainstem actually fires off a powerful chemical signal that essentially locks down all your major muscles. And well, this is actually a brilliant safety mechanism. Without it, if you were dreaming you were an MMA fighter, you'd literally be swinging punches at your spouse in the middle of the night. Second, we have realistic hallucinations. Your visual cortex suddenly becomes wildly active, making colors, shapes, and details so unbelievably sharp that your imagination actually feels more real than your waking life. Third, and this is perhaps the wildest part to me, logic completely disappears. The prefrontal cortex, which is your center for reasoning and self-control, just powers down. It goes offline. That is exactly why you can find yourself riding a giant chicken through the streets to go buy bubble tea, and your brain just accepts it as completely normal, no questions asked. Finally, the fourth lockdown, the memory wipe. Chemicals that are absolutely required for long-term memory, like norepinephrine, just plummet to near zero. Your brain essentially decides that this chaotic movie doesn't need saving, and it deletes the footage just 10 minutes after you wake up.
Now, humanity hasn't always understood these complex mechanics. For thousands of years, we basically projected our own mysteries onto this blank canvas. Around 3000 BC, the ancient Egyptians actually saw dreams as direct messages from the gods. They even built these dedicated sleep temples where priests would interpret your dreams as a literal weather forecast for your fate. Like dreaming of peeing in the Nile? To them, that meant financial prosperity was coming your way. Fast forward a bit to 1900, and Sigmund Freud pulls dreams out of the heavens and drags them right down into the dark depths of the human psyche. Freud famously argued that every dream was essentially a coded symbol for our deeply hidden and often really embarrassing desires. Dreaming of a key or a stick? Well, to Freud, that was simply the brain encoding desires that polite society wouldn't allow you to express. But everything, and I mean everything, changed in 1952. That was the dawn of the modern scientific era of sleep.
And that brings us to what we call the Chicago Awakening. See, up until 1952, scientists just assumed the sleeping brain simply shut off, like a light bulb being flicked out for the night, just powering down to save energy. But at the University of Chicago, a researcher named Eugene Asarinsky hooked electrodes up to his volunteers and made a genuinely shocking discovery. After hours of calm, quiet sleep, the subjects' brains suddenly exploded with electrical activity. The brainwaves just went completely wild, lighting up like a high-speed Formula One race. And under their closed eyelids, their eyeballs were darting back and forth frantically, almost as if they were watching a hyper-fast tennis match up close. He had discovered REM sleep, rapid eye movement. And the crazy thing, whenever he woke someone up during this chaotic brainstorm, they would inevitably shout out that they were right in the middle of an incredibly vivid dream.
All of this chaotic energy actually fits into an incredible 90-minute roller coaster we know as the sleep cycle. It is not just one uniform block of rest. First, you dip into non-REM 1 and 2. This is a very light sleep where even, say, a cat walking by could easily wake you.
Then you plunge into the deep, dark abyss of non-REM 3. Here, slow, powerful delta waves take over. This stage is strictly physical maintenance. Your body is busy repairing tissues, building muscle, and fortifying your immune system. But once that physical body is repaired, the roller coaster shoots straight back up into REM sleep. The brainwaves go absolutely wild, and the nightly entertainment begins. And here's a fun fact. Because these REM stages get longer and closer together towards the morning, your weirdest, most cinematic dreams always happen right before your alarm clock violently ruins everything. Oh, and by the way, if you've ever seen your dog twitching and making those cute little growls in their sleep, yep, they're in REM too, probably dreaming about finally catching that giant neighborhood squirrel. So the crucial point here is, we know how this happens, but why?
Section 2. The virtual reality simulator. As modern MMRI and PET scans finally arrived on the scene, neuroscientists started noticing that the brain during dreams works in a highly mechanical, predictable way. They actually stopped asking, "What does this dream mean?" and started asking a much more brutal, survival-focused question. Why would evolution preserve a mechanism that literally leaves us paralyzed and vulnerable for hours on end? Science has basically given us 5 major theories to explain this mystery. The first is the activation synthesis theory, and honestly, it's brutally simple. It suggests that dreams mean absolutely nothing, zero. Your brainstem is just randomly firing electrical signals, kind of like a little kid rapidly flipping light switches on and off. Your highly intelligent cortex panics at this sudden chaos and frantically tries to stitch these random bursts of light and sound into a story that actually makes sense. You're basically just finding patterns in biological static. But the other theories suggest something much more purposeful is happening in the dark.
Take the memory consolidation theory, for instance. I want you to think of the brain as a late-night librarian. All day long, you are just bombarded with data, right? You're learning a new language, doing your job, noting what your coworker wore to the meeting. It's a mess of information. During REM sleep, the brain essentially hits the save button. It cleans up that messy pile of books, carefully deciding what to keep for tomorrow and what to shred. There was this famous 2010 experiment where volunteers were tasked with navigating a highly complex 3D maze. The group that was allowed to nap and actually dream about the maze completely outperformed the group that stayed awake or didn't dream at all. The terrifyingly beautiful truth here is that your brain is actively practicing and perfecting your life skills in the background, all while you are completely unconscious.
Then we have the simulation theories. Let me ask you, have you ever dreamed of falling, being chased by a monster, or maybe showing up to work totally naked? Evolutionary psychologists firmly believe this is the threat simulation theory at work. For our ancient ancestors, dreams were a high-stakes virtual reality training room for survival. You could safely practice running away from a saber-toothed tiger from the comfort of your bed so that the very next day, your fight-or-flight reflexes were razor-sharp. But in our modern world, that saber-toothed tiger has largely been replaced by social judgment. Social simulation theory suggests we now practice complex emotional conflicts instead. Things like having a massive fight with your boss or giving a keynote speech without any pants on. We do this so we can safely navigate the embarrassment and rejection of the real world. So those nightmares you hate, they aren't punishments. They're actually a fast-track virtual reality survival training course.
Section 3. The Territorial War. Now, up until now, these theories make the brain sound like this incredibly helpful assistant, right? Just organizing our files and rehearsing our speeches while we sleep. But the famous neuroscientist David Eagleman proposed a theory that will completely change how you look at your own mind. It's unsettling, it's highly cinematic, and it is rooted in pure, brutal biological survival. To really understand it, we have to return to that one fundamental question. Why on earth would evolution keep such a risky, energy-consuming mechanism? Think about the massive evolutionary cost here. You are lying there paralyzed, completely unaware of your surroundings, burning massive amounts of energy to run a private internal movie theater and leaving yourself completely vulnerable to predators. The answer to this isn't mystical. It is a brutally practical biological dilemma.
The secret lies in a mind-bending concept called neuroplasticity. See, the brain is not some static, unchanging map. It is a highly plastic, fiercely competitive battleground where different sensory regions are constantly fighting each other for territory. The golden rule of the brain is simple: use it or lose it. If one region sits idle for too long, neighboring senses will aggressively invade and take over that unused space. In fact, terrifying experiments have proven that if you are completely blindfolded, your auditory and touch senses will begin invading and physically taking over your visual cortex in as little as 40 to 60 minutes. Let that sink in. The brain absolutely, under no circumstances, tolerates idle real estate.
So I want you to apply that terrifying reality to the nightly paralysis. For millions of years, our ancient ancestors slept in pitch-black darkness for 8 to 10 hours a single night. The visual cortex was receiving absolutely zero input.
That is a massive evolutionary crisis. If you go 10 hours without seeing anything, your hearing and your sense of touch will literally start eating away at your visual territory. So what was evolution's genius, desperate solution to this problem? Enter the defensive activation theory. Dreams are nothing more than a biological screensaver. Every 90 minutes, the brainstem violently blasts the visual cortex with random, vivid images. It's blasting those signals simply to say, hey, I'm still using this space. Back off. When you think about it that way, dreams aren't mystical messages from the universe. They are a desperate, nightly territorial war happening right inside your skull, just to protect your ability to see the next morning.
Section 4. The ultimate mystery.
So, after all of that, which of these is the true answer? Is the brain just organizing files, dodging ancient tigers, composing legendary pop music, or just fighting a brutal, desperate war to protect its visual real estate? The most deeply honest scientific answer we have right now is likely all of the above. Evolution is the absolute master of recycling. What may have started out as a simple, desperate screensaver to protect our vision was eventually hijacked by the brain to process our daytime trauma, store our most important memories, and spark the creative genius of people like Kekulé and McCartney. And you know, this brings us to the deepest, most fascinating paradox of our modern age. We have literally launched telescopes into the freezing, empty void of space to capture photographs of black holes millions of light years away. We've mapped out the billions of letters that make up the human genome. We've even built artificial intelligence that can converse and create art. Yet, despite all of this unimaginable scientific progress, we still cannot reach an absolute consensus on why every single night the human brain paralyzes its own body to run a private, hyper-realistic movie theater. To me, it is a profound emotional reminder that the universe inside the human mind remains just as vast, untamed, and deeply mysterious as the cosmos above us.
So tonight, when the lights finally go out, when you close your eyes and feel your body go heavy and completely still, I want you to really enjoy it. You are stepping into the greatest, strangest, and most advanced private virtual reality simulator ever created. It's quite literally the only place in existence where you can soar high above cities, converse with the dead, solve the complex mysteries of chemistry, or just casually grab a bubble tea with a fire-breathing dragon. So the only question left is, what will your brain simulate tonight? Thank you for watching World Explain. See you in the next Explainer.